So we're talking about Inside today. We're talking about Bo Burnham's 2021 Netflix special, Inside.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, 2021.
brand spanking new.
I had thought it came out last year, but that wouldn't make sense.
And as a special guest, we have maybe the biggest fan that I know of this special, Lydia Marino, my younger sibling, little sibster as they call them. Yeah.
That's good.
Lydia, would you like to say anything about yourself, distinguished guest?
It's great to be here. Um,
Lydia Marino is a professor emeritus at Duquesne University. Uh,
Is
a
that
uh,
is that true?
a Quiznos lecturer at
Oh,
the
okay.
American Military University, and um, a lover of yarn and
Steven Universe
Steven
and Bo
Universe
Burnham. Apparently,
and
although
Bo
I'm a
Burnham.
little embarrassed
I
how much I like it.
was just telling Leo about how I'm not gonna watch Steven Universe.
Why?
They just look slippery. It's the same thing as Adventure
Why?
Time.
Sorry. Okay, you'll never be gay then.
Okay. All right. Gatekeeper. Gatekeeper.
Ouch.
Yeah, we gotta be patient with Randy because eventually something will get him in.
Twilight almost got me yesterday.
And when
Honestly.
when you do watch it, we can do a podcast about it.
True,
Oh man.
that's what I'm saying.
I mean, I'm a really good podcaster, but I don't know if I'm that good.
We could make a podcast about each episode. Each episode is 11 minutes long. We could make an hour-long podcast about each one.
It'd probably be pretty good for my career, I guess. Let's do it.
So where do we start with this?
I think we should start with Bo Burnham's special Inside, because that's at the top of the page here.
Yeah, and later we're going to be talking about 846, the Dave Chappelle mini special.
Yeah, we're briefly, since not everybody has
How
done the
can we
research.
leave after, you know?
I know. No, what? No, don't be crazy. Because there's a third part we need you for.
Oh, okay.
We'll see if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I can just cut it. Yeah, it's just a brief mention as like a potential trend.
Yeah.
That was good. So okay. So what did you think about the special? Did you did you like it? Anyone?
I loved it.
Okay.
Lydia's the one who introduced it to me too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
I liked it too.
I think what was cool about it was that Bo Burnham managed to subvert my expectations about what it was going to be like just enough times, or well, really more than enough times that like, for example, a good like kind of example of this is the bit where he's like doing a reaction video to his own song, and then it becomes a reaction video to the reaction video. It loops a couple times. There's a couple moments where he talks about where he dares to like go into like express that kind of thought loop of like self-criticism, and then like I don't know, praising himself for self-criticism and then criticizing himself for praising himself. And I think that that's like really fits the sort of like inside um theme, because I really feel like inside was just sort of the theme, did a lot with that.
Hmm. Do you think it was funny?
Was it funny?
Yeah. I can tell you now, I did not laugh once.
I had some good laughs. I remember
I got
laughing when I watched it for the first time with you, Lydia, actually,
Laugh?
but not a lot.
I cried.
You laughed? I
I did
cried.
both. More
Yeah.
crying than laughing.
Mm-hmm.
There's some parts where I'm like, whoa, it's just me, and it felt like it was just me and Bo Burnham.
I did watch it more than once though, and I will say, so I watched it and then I talked to a friend about it and he was like, well, my one criticism is that there could have been more self-reflection and connection to like real things that are happening and real problems. Um, and I was like, that's a valid criticism. And I reflected on that and I watched it again and I decided, you know what? I don't think that that's what the special is about, though. I think it's just an expression of wah-wahs, and some of it gets really real. Some of it is just like some real sad stuff though. And even if we're trying to look at our own experience during the pandemic and be like, oh, I grew in this way, this was a good experience, this part of it, like I'm gonna look at this part of it and say that was healthy for me. There's still a reality where we all had really shitty parts where we were just really sad. And like we're just kind of wondering if we would ever be able to be people again and what kind of long-term effects this would have on us. And we're reckoning with all of the horrible things in the world that were like exacerbated like by the pandemic. And when I kind of brought that back to my friend, they were like, yeah, I agree, I like it for what it is. And I think I also laughed more when I watched it again after thinking about all of that.
Yeah, it was more like epistemological. It was more like a diary than a typical like Bo Burnham special. I'm not a huge fan of Bo Burnham. I think comedy songs in general are usually pretty weak, but for the most part, yeah, I like the more sensitive second half of this compared to the like jokier first half. I mean, I think that was like I think that's like an interesting way to show his progression, as just as a person through the year. I mean, there's a pretty stark tonal difference between the two halves of this special. I really wasn't on board with like the jokey stuff. I could have done with a bit more insight into Bo Burnham.
So you kind of agree with my friend.
Yeah, definitely. I think. Yeah. The one that really sent me over the top was White Woman's Instagram. I really hated that song.
I think the middle of it.
The well that's what I'm getting at. There was like that middle part where she's talking about like the playing the girl character is talking about like mom tell dad I love him and like kind of implying that I feel like her parents were dead or something.
No, yeah. I was gonna say content warning. The middle part where he's like talking about his mom who is dead,
Yeah.
and a post about it. I thought that like how I felt during that song was like the beginning of it was just like making fun of a white woman's Instagram and like the aesthetics, and then there was that post, and then after that post it got like more uplifting, and it was actually like, oh no, like this is good for her. That's she's having a she's just trying to find beautiful things and like share them. That was the vibe that I got, but I was just kind of like weird.
Yeah, I mean like there's like the artsy fartsy way of looking at it, which is like how I'm gonna choose to look at it. That like it's a story about like how a person finds themselves, you know, in like kind of a cut and paste social media environment.
Right. The cut and paste aspect of it, I think is like kind of sort of a lot of it's like kind of where Bo Burnham kind of comes from. Like a lot of his older songs were very free associative, and I gotta just say, Golden Retriever and a Flower Crown, as inane and silly as it is one of my favorite lines in the entire special.
It was so good. It was so good. It was so on point. When he's laying there, and when he is laying there and the pumpkins are projected onto him, I realized that he was probably trying to figure out how to project a pumpkin patch and then look like he was laying in it. And then he was like, wait, no, the pumpkins got projected onto me. And then he just like went with it. And I was like, that's great. I love that. That was so good. Um,
This this did feel like a little. I mean, obviously it was more of a production than your usual comedy special. I liken this to like kabuki or puppet theater later on in the document, but this was like more of a production, which was really cool. There was like an improvisational feel to it, which I think was important to the overall statement of the special. But I just don't know. I just don't know how I feel about calling it a comedy special. I think that's a weird way. Like it's like weird nomenclature for it.
That's kind of what's That's one of the things that I think we're gonna come back to is that like
Yeah,
maybe this is gonna set the tone for a different kind of maybe it'll be a one off. Maybe there will be imitators though, you know. Maybe like there's more space for this kind of thing in the future.
I think it was comedy. When I think about, I don't like that many comics. Um, but often I'm thinking of a comedy special that I watched that also was not really a comedy special. Do you mind if I call? Have you ever heard of it was called Douglas.
Mm.
Remember her? What's her name? Hannah? Hannah Gadsby. So she had two comedy specials that were on Netflix. There was Douglas, and then there was another one I can't remember the name of, but it was like a one woman show kind of thing. And she said in her one of her specials, like, I wanted to quit comedy. And that's because I realized that a lot of what I was doing was just making fun of myself, you know? And I think a lot of comics do that. They're relying on self deprecation. And especially if you are have experienced, I mean, you could argue that everyone is experiencing trauma because we live in a capitalist society, but if you also like, she is like identifies as lesbian and autistic, and if you are making fun of yourself and you have also, experienced prejudice and, abuse because of the society that you live in, then that's like really bad for your self esteem to be making like a spectacle of yourself in that way. And I think that making a spectacle of the spectacle, like that's what Bo Burnham did. He made fun of the shit that we are living in, and it wasn't funny because it's so sad, but it was funny. That's how I feel. I'm like, it was comedy. It's just like fucked up how, but I think it's funny because he was so good at like writing songs about it and making rhymes and putting it into words and doing the visuals. Um, but it also was very expressive and like made me feel a lot of like sadness.
Yeah, shout out to his cinematography also. Very, very creative. And it's so transparent a lot of it because you're seeing the set, you're seeing the camera literally sometimes in the mirror or whatever. He's holding a different camera. You're seeing how he sets up shots. You're seeing him do takes. I love that aspect of it because it's like I don't know, and it doesn't take away from it. Somehow adds to like the effect when you're actually seeing it all put together. When you're seeing him with the projector on him and the lights and all that stuff.
I really appreciate all the be real in this.
Mm.
Yeah, and like the pickup shots where he's just talking into the mirror, I thought were really nice. Yeah, I don't know. I would liken this more to like. Did you guys watch the Oblongs? I don't know if that's still on TV or
No.
anything.
No.
It was like a cartoon sitcom that was like, it was like kind of a regular sitcom, except it was like in the like dystopian far future of America, where like, capitalism has like extracted all the value possible from the world, and it was just a goofy sitcom. I don't know. It's one of those things where like, yes, it is funny, but there's just the kind of like niggling sense of like desperation the whole time.
Mm.
And I think that was a huge feature of this.
You know what's funny actually is you know what was recommended to me by the algorithm once I finished the special? BoJack Horseman, which is a show I actually haven't watched except for the first couple episodes, but have been meaning to watch. And I feel like the way that we're speaking about this isn't that different from how I've heard people speak about that show.
Very ugly show.
You hate the look of that show?
Oh my god, it's a horse. It's a horseman.
But there's something about that show, once again, it's like it's funny, but it's not funny. For me, it's the layer of removal from reality because you're looking at these really fucked up characters that reflect very real fucked up traits of people who have been traumatized by capitalism, and you're able to like laugh at it and also like process it because they're cartoons and they're animals. It just like makes it easier to get to the like you could not do that with a real people show. And I feel like him having this special and doing it and just talking about all of this stuff in small doses, like in like a kind of goofy way, like when he's doing it with like Sako. That's how the world works with the sock puppet. I'm like,
I was gonna bring up that song next too, so I'll pin that.
yeah, that was
Go
just
ahead.
kind of like a, I don't know, I think it was a good way of unpacking these like feelings that I feel like a lot of people have collectively felt.
Word.
Yeah, I mean, there is something appealing about BoJack Horseman in the same way that there's something appealing about this. I mean, I don't know. I find myself a little bit more sensitive than maybe I feel like I should be to like kind of like the struggling actor, the starving artist situation. I think there's like some really sad human stories there, and that's what like appealed to me so much about this.
Mm. Kind of brings you in.
Yeah, just because I mean, it like sucks to say, and like it makes me feel like a weirdo or something, but like I definitely see myself in it.
Doesn't make you seem like a weirdo.
It makes me see myself as weirdo.
If I said that, it probably would have made me feel weird to say it too. But like I relate.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I would definitely like clown on somebody that said it to me, but it's like something I feel.
Well, but there's aspects of his character that I think we all feel, like of all the characters, um, that we all feel, and their flaws are so exaggerated that the stuff that BoJack does, has just become a BoJack Horseman podcast. But like the stuff that BoJack does is not stuff that most people have done. It's like very extreme, very shitty, very ugly. Um, but the way that he processes his flaws and falls into patterns of bad behavior, and like the way that he like has expresses his trauma, I feel like is something that feeling of like I feel shitty about myself, but I can't keep my shit together either, and I don't know how to fix it, like you're just constantly like slipping. I feel like that is like a very relatable feeling. And also because it was so exaggerated, it's easier, like, they really hit you over the head with it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm like gonna be real, that's like the not superficial reason that I avoid that show. Um, it's like, I mean, we're gonna talk about Dave Chappelle again later, but like, you watch the Chappelle show or something. I don't know if either of you two have, but
I watched the first two episodes last night actually.
okay, so maybe you don't feel the same way, but like, I'll watch it and I'll be laughing. Like some of those episodes, like really like make me howl, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, this is a little bit too real. I don't know if I can watch another one of these today. Like, so if you watched the first episode, you would have seen the, oh, what was his name? The character,
Clayton
the
Bigsby.
Clayton Bigsby, yeah,
Yeah, the black white supremacist.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure I'm gonna have to cut this, but like, I don't know. It kind of makes me think of somebody like, Candace Owens, somebody like that. Just figures and like situations that we see happen in real life. It like is a little bit prophetic in that way. It's just it can be a little bit too real for me, which this special definitely got a little bit too real for me sometimes.
A couple times for me too, where it kind of hit. Like I said, it was just me and Bo Burnham's talking at some part of me that doesn't usually get talked at by any media. The kind of thing like I might see a YouTube video that's about some like topic that I might think like, oh, that might be useful to me to work on myself or some shit, but then I don't click on it because I don't want to get stressed out. And this special just like drops you into those kind of moments a couple times without a lot of warning. You know what I mean?
The mental health stuff and the moment where he's makes that joke about him just being totally unhinged in that scene where he's like holding a knife, and then he goes back and he's, gonna give a, you guys give content warnings at the beginning of the episode though, but but he goes back and he talks about like you shouldn't really, I was just joking, you shouldn't kill yourself, and has a moment where he talks about suicide. And then there's a scene of him looking like shit watching that back, as like whether it was him looking at it and being like, that's fake, or it was him looking at it and being like, I need to watch this because I feel bad. So I'm looking at this video of me telling other people that they should not do that. And I feel like
Wow. I like missed that. That's so good. That's so good.
it was so good. And I feel like that was something that I had a I had a lot of I've always had like struggled with depression and like suicide ideation. So I feel like watching that play out for him, watching him kind of lose it a little bit, and that just thinking back on times during the pandemic where I was like, oh wow, I lost it. Or I like talk to my neighbors and I would just be like, yeah, like, think I'm glad that you guys were down there because it kind of kept me um together, like, and really not kidding when I said that, and seeing that happen for him. I was like, whoa, that's pretty there's no other way to show that. I think he really nailed that. Not that that's everyone's experience, but I think that the way he portrayed that was very good.
Yeah, for sure. There, that the scene that you were talking about was one of two times. I watched this for the first time on Monday, at least the first time in full. I watched like the first hour last week, but that was one of two moments where I had to like pause and like get away from the show for a little bit because I don't know I, it just kind of felt like he was talking about me for a little bit. If I don't want to kill myself, but like if I could kill myself for like 18 months, I would.
I'd never heard anybody say that before, but I was like, wow, I really relate to that. Like that when he says that, it like opens me up to like fantasizing, which is weird, but like
I mean, well, I, I I've had I've definitely had like moments where like, oh, if I had the means right now, I would do it. And then it's like 30 minutes later and it's like, oh no, I was hungry or something. Like I I or I didn't get enough sleep, but now I'm actually awake and like I'm thinking clearly or whatever. And then there was the part where he stopped, like it was right before I'm not going to spoil anything, but it was right before the best song in the whole show, All Eyes on Me, where he just like stopped and looked into the camera and like, I'm not well. I was like, God damn, Bo, fuck you, Pringles guy. And I had to stop. I had to like stop and like I went outside and like I just had to pick myself up after that. I don't know that's that. I don't think the special would have made it if that's what it was the whole time. If it was like that level of sensitivity the whole time, I don't think I just don't think it would have made it to Netflix at that point. But I would love to get like a really like soft like singer songwriter album from Bo Burnham because he's like proved that he's got the chops.
I was thinking that too this time around when I was watching it.
Give me an 808s and Heartbreak or something, Bo.
I some of his singing is so good. Like I didn't really think about him as a singer before this.
Something that I felt a lot during the pandemic, especially because whenever I get in those moods where I feel very bad and like do, you know, harmful things to myself, um it is, and I don't know how much of that was real or in what way it was real for him, but it's real for a lot of people before the pandemic, during, after. I feel like that feeling of looking at yourself and just being like, this is so fucking stupid. This feels so performative. Knowing that he filmed himself freaking out like that, I think kind of really just does it for me. I'm like, that fucking feeling of like kind of like you literally feel like when it feels performative to do anything. Like during the pandemic, so I've had it before where I'm like, it feels like performative to have an anxiety attack. Even this feels so dramatic, but like my body needs this, or to do X thing, to myself, that feels performative. But I during the pandemic would have it for things that were like self-care too. It felt stupid to do anything good for myself because I was just alone and no one was even seeing it, and I was so deeply depressed that I was just like, what does it even matter? I feel like I am in a movie and someone is watching me, but no one is watching me. And then I would also feel that when I would do bad things, and um that feeling that you are performing and someone is watching you, but no one's watching you and you're not really experiencing the experience. And I feel like that the him watching the video back of him talking about mental health while he's filming himself, just that, like, those layers, that like inception, it was just like really like nailed it for me. That just feeling of like disgust and like just like just annoyance at yourself that you're even feeling that fucked up. um
It it's funny for me that this special, like, it does not resemble my 2020 and 2021 experience at all. It instead, what it did is it reminds and foreshadows to me of what's gonna happen, what could happen when I get my shit together again. Um, I've, I mean, I've had like, I don't know, I feel like my time during coronavirus and during, the Black Lives Matter movement last summer and everything was really good for me. And I don't know, that was like sort of the feeling that I left the special with, was that like this is what it's like for me in the real world.
Mm. Can we talk a little bit about the sort of the subtext of the whole like filming himself thing and like,
Are you talking about when he did the reaction video?
well, no, just what Lydia was just saying about he's filming himself, watching himself reassure other people.
Okay, that no,
Yeah.
filming himself is, I thought what you meant was the reaction
Word.
video.
I mean, he
Okay.
does. I think he does it all the time because there's a subtext of like, um, this is like kind of what's always happening. One of the most brilliant thing. Okay, so the line of the about the backlash to the backlash to the thing that's just begun, I think is another example of this a little bit. Um, just like people reacting to people's reactions. It's a big theme. Even if it's either you reacting to your own. I think he's kind of insinuating that this sort of that style of thinking and of experiencing the world kind of gets exacerbated by social media. And he also at one point says like this is what we've always wanted about social media in general. And I think he's kind of right that like on the level of like our anxiety, like we do crave that, and it's being sold to us.
and when he says that Zoomers are going to develop a dissociative personality disorder, and then the little bit of everything all the time, just all of that thread, my friend EJ was like, you like the way that the Bo Burnham special was introduced to me. So my friend had already been like, Lydia, you need to read Society of the Spectacle. Society of the Spectacle. Um,
That came up on the new Weird Studies today.
oh, really? I have not read it yet, but I watched a video about it and talked about it, and I'm trying to finish my current book so I can read it. But he was like, Lydia, you gotta watch it. It's literally about the spectacle. And I think it is. It's about the spectacle. It's about that. It's about how we are controlled by media, by images of capitalism. And also when he's like, like he says, like, you say the ocean is rising, like I give a shit. Just stuff like that, where it's like when you're like confronted with these larger issues that are happening in the world and you feel like you know that there's literally nothing we can do about it. The idea that we should even care about it, I mean, on an individual level, in a in a way that insinuates we're supposed to try and enact change is a lot of like consumer like responsibility propaganda. Um
Right, that message just gets like used to make us try to buy shit still, but just buy shit in what's supposed to be the right way.
exactly, like bit like wooden toothbrush. Um and I'm calling myself out here because I use those. But I think that kind of spectacle, that kind of like everything that we think our identities as a whole are controlled. Like they're commodities. They are like not unique. They're totally intentional. Um, and we are living through these like images and these like phrases that we are told. And um, so that connection to like social media and the irony that that was the only thing too keeping us in touch with each other during the pandemic, I think is huge too. Like when he talks about sexting and FaceTiming with his mom and how fucking frustrating and horrible it is, but at the same time it's like necessary because we literally don't have anything else.
There's like this really frustrating contrast that like you become more aware of it like as you grow up. I don't know if my timeline's like all the way correct here, but I would compare it to like you know uh, Italy having to deal with like at the height of the Renaissance you get the plague, right? There's like this clash of like extreme decadence and also like imminent apocalypse that I think really is distilled in just a super exquisite way inside.
One of the couple things, Lydia, on the thing that you were just talking about, how like we're all inside, but we're trying to stay connected with each other. And in the times when he says this is what we've always wanted, I think that really rings. I think what he means is like we created this world, like this was like the result. This was the natural result of like designing the iPad to do exactly what we wanted it to do. That whole thing. But it also means like we were like there's an element of the pandemic in the Western world, which is like the Western developed like technocratic society that we live in, where like everyone has an iPhone and like your life is like mediated through your iPhone and shit. Like this is what we've always wanted in the sense that like we were all prepared for this. Like our lives are online anyways right now. There was times when I felt during the pandemic that on a collective level this was an excuse for everybody to just stay inside. Not that it wasn't shitty, not that it didn't not that like and I'm not saying like obviously not everybody has access to that, but again just like the collective mood that gets projected by the media is all about like why it's important to stay inside, but didn't really talk about the fact that like a lot of the people who were writing those articles had no real problems. Their lives were already all online.
Yeah.
It's easy for them.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that because the next thought I had after saying what I said was like we should talk about the class experience of the pandemic and the fact that it's still going on, but it's not here. And the even talking about the pandemic seems fake. It's like these news articles that are circulated just to keep you thinking about it and be like, remember, it's still here, but we all know that that's just like something to write about. And if it came down to it, if we like had another outbreak, or a new variant that was resistant to the vaccines, people would not stay inside. And it's interesting because I was on fucking Instagram the other day and I saw this like from this meme account was like a picture of like the first ever case of monkeypox was discovered in a human in Dallas, Texas who flew back from wherever. And there's a comment underneath that said like just fucking sacrifice him. We cannot do this again. And it's just that. And then I looked up monkeypox on Google and clicked news, and that article came up, and it was like Washington Post being like, all right, this does not pose any real threat. Please, like, remember that COVID still poses a threat, a bigger threat than this does. And it's just funny because people are like willing to like be like, oh, well, the pandemic's over. That sure sucked. Like, let's make sure that doesn't happen again. When really, like, there's a very real possibility that we all will need to be staying inside again this winter. And there are certain people who will not accept that because to them, it's over. It's done.
For a lot of people, it never started.
Right, there's the people for whom it never started, and the people for whom it was totally like a mediated experience online. The pandemic was the way that people talked about it, and like for those people, for those of us who like are, it's just done no matter what. And it's like I'm not 100% sure that I'm not one of those people. You know what I mean? Because it depends on how much I'm willing to read and how much I'm willing to talk about it and how much the media is willing to talk about it. But the pandemic as a cultural phenomenon feels like it's going away. You know what I mean? And but that doesn't mean the pandemic's actually done. It might mean that there's a mismatch between what we thought of as the pandemic and what the pandemic actually is. And I'm sure there is a mismatch because there always is one. But the question is how dangerous, like how lethal is that mismatch going to be? You know what I mean? What's the cost of that?
No, I don't think we've begun to experience the reckoning from general irresponsibility through the last year and a half. On a lighter note, I think we should talk about some of the songs from the show because that's kind of what that's what it's all about. It's the songs at the end of the day, right?
Oh, what was the song where? What was the song where he says that basically, um, your relationship to the real world should be as a miner going out to collect resources to bring back.
That was just a little like intermittent comedy bit.
I feel like that's some like Society of the Spectacle shit too.
I love that because he was sitting there pretending to do stand up naked. And then he was saying, what I realized is our interactions with the real world should just be in the nature of like going to get things, resources, and bringing them back, and then resuming our interactions online. In the real
Yeah, I think that's when he got the closest to just that's like the most succinct that he was about it. That was really smart to me.
Yes, and I think the whole setting of that too, of him just pretending to do comedy and then just making some stupid ass joke after that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when he says the thing about pirates, right? Which like what?
Honestly, I did like every song in its own way. That's How the World Works was really good. You know, that was a good way of like starting to be like, oh, we're gonna talk about hard things. This is gonna be
Mm-hmm.
um a mixed experience. And then you could tell like as the months went by, as the songs went by, that it like got more and more intense.
I think that's some of the best social commentary in the thing is that moment with Sako. I thought that was really good. I mean, and he's obviously he's like I think, and of course the easy question, which is probably a little bit the wrong question, is like, is Bo Burnham a communist? And I don't think that Bo Burnham is necessarily a communist. I've heard other people say that he's maybe more of a libertarian. I don't think he's a liberal.
Oh, that doesn't matter.
Bo Burnham not only understands but is willing to talk about these things, but more than being willing to talk about them, he's considered how to talk about them as a comedian.
That's a
You
sneeze
know,
that I would put on a soundboard.
You can have it. I mean, it's recorded now.
You can have it. Thank you.
It's for all the birthdays I've
now we
missed.
got to keep it in.
Um. Okay. Well, so Leo and I have talked a bit, like in small snippets of conversation about how the world works. My
What do you
again,
mean?
I have to say it for like the third week in a row. What?
Are you talking about the song or the concept?
The song.
Song.
So,
The
good one.
idea that you're like, me and Leo have talked in small snippets about how the world works. Like,
No, we've talked about it in huge snippets for a year.
We've tried. We hope that we've been
Um,
talking about it.
so I've had to say it the last like 4 episodes in a row, but I've noticed that I'm extremely sensitive to meta commentary, right? And so I've been wondering since I heard the song. I guess it would have. It's less than a week since I've heard the song for the first time, but I don't know. For me the interesting part of the song to talk about is how well intentioned, like well read people are still extremely susceptible to wild conspiracy theories, which is something that we've had to reckon with a lot over the past year. So, what do you think about the pedophilic corporate elite?
Well, he's obviously talking about Jeffrey Epstein and everybody that associated with him.
Epstein, Weinstein, the Nickelodeon guy. Yeah.
The powerful Dan Schneider.
Is that his name? Dude, I mean, he is, though. He's f- showing feet to the kids, man.
Uh-oh.
I mean, it's like a pretty serious fucking thing that, like, the guy that makes the shows at Nickelodeon was, like, a pervert, right?
I did not know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's been like a. It's like pretty interesting to hear Jeanette McCurdy talk um, about her experience in Hollywood. She's like one of those child stars that seems to have like survived and
Good.
thrived.
It's ironic because the character they had her playing. Like I saw a meme the other day and it was like about that friend on every TV show that doesn't wanna, is always hanging around because they have a bad home life. And Sam from iCarly was one of them. And it's ironic because they're portraying her too as this like scrappy kind of like more aware, traumatized character. And she actually is like,
She is that in person, but like the show where she portrayed that is, probably one of the things that turned her into that.
right.
Mm.
That's true.
Oh, real quick on the way the world works. I think it's interesting also that he says pedophilic corporate elite, which obviously, like, even if you're talking about specific actual people, that always rings conspiratorial, QAnonian, right wing. You know, even if you push it anti-Semitic. But what ends up making Bo Burnham pull the sock off his hand isn't talking about the pedophilic corporate elite, right? It's like talking about the genocides of people. Like, I think that's when he's like, that's enough, basically.
Yeah, I hope you learned your lesson. I did, and it hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, I did and it hurt. Did you learn your lesson? Yes, I did and it hurt. Like that really, that's when it gets like, whoa. Like whether or not you're literally, like obviously the people that Sacco represents aren't literally socks on hands, but the idea being that the power that people have over them is enough to completely silence them. And in the eyes of other white people, other powerful people, whatever, uh, to render them basically as incapable of speaking in any white sanctioned space as they would be if they were just a sock puppet taken off, I think is really good. Really on point. The metaphor obviously breaks down if you look at it too closely, and I'm not trying to say that like white people controlled the avenues of speech for others, and I don't think Bo Burnham was saying that. Although you could make that criticism if you wanted to get way in the weeds, but I think that the feeling that I felt when he pulls the sock off of his hand is going to stay with me, as silly as it is. Like every time I watch that, I'm like, oh, I'm like, wow, that's yeah, just the heartlessness of it.
The one about holding him accountable one.
Problematic.
Yeah, problematic. Isn't anyone gonna hold me accountable? There's such an issue in the world with holding people accountable. I both have criticisms of cancel culture as it functions because I think that it's like on the ground it's useless. We shouldn't be canceling people because they do something wrong if we are like interacting with them and friends with them. And in the realm of like canceling celebrities, literally who gives a shit because most celebrities are already probably a piece of shit. Bo Burnham's like somewhere in between a real person and a celebrity, and he's just like, is anyone even gonna notice that I did these shitty things? And I just think that's hilarious. It makes a perfect mockery of both cancel culture and the fact that we like do not know how to talk about shitty things that we have done and hold each other accountable.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I feel like I've changed my opinion a little bit since we recorded our episode about cancel culture, but I think something that remains true is that when, especially a celebrity, I don't I don't really know that if you can cancel regular people. I mean, I guess it happened with like the bird watching incident last year. Like the permit Patty. There was like the Karen from Victoria's Secret that blew up recently. But canceling a celebrity it's almost like alchemy. You transmute one audience for another. I mean, you you just delete them from like, oh, this person's okay, and they're like not problematic, and like maybe we can even make them better to like, let's just give them to the right and let that become their sphere of influence and the sphere that influences them.
Right, because they have the means to attract an audience. You can't take that away from like a YouTube star unless YouTube literally even if YouTube deletes their account, they still have people looking for them. All they have to do is act on it, and they're gonna find an audience again because the potential to have an audience doesn't get canceled. The audience just changes. You're right. Unless they take it on themselves to completely go out of the public eye, they're not gonna go anywhere. It's easier to stick around.
Yeah, just yesterday I think, or maybe Monday. I guess it depends on whether today is the day I think it is. But like Marjorie Taylor Greene was suspended from Twitter for like 12 hours or 6 hours or something recently. All that does, that just like gives her something to talk about. Literally all it does is like it's a glow up for her as far as her fan base is concerned. It's probably one of the best things that's happened to her since she got weirdly elected into office.
She's the QAnon one, right?
She's one of them, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. She's one of the QAnon ones.
Yeah. I think they're all like degrees of QAnon ones.
Fair.
All right. So tell me about the songs you liked. What do you got?
Um, I know that your favorite one is the one that was also my favorite one, Randy. That funny feeling, but I love the sequence of Welcome to the Internet, Bezos, Stu, and that funny feeling. And I'm just gonna quickly say, Welcome to the Internet is just a perfect encapsulation of what the internet is. The chaos, like the sounds, the visuals and the video, the creepiness, the it's so good.
So I watched this special in three sittings. I watched it one and a half times in three sittings. And the first time I really didn't like Welcome to the Internet. And by the time I got through the end of the special the first time and started watching again, it had clicked that it like has a place and it's important in the special, and I got it. Um,
Yeah.
I can hear like I can bop around to the sea shanty kind of thing. I I can appreciate like the like it kind of sounds like a polka I guess or something.
When he says all the colored
Drugs,
characters in Harry Potter fucking each other, I was like, he
too real.
nailed some deep Tumblr shit. Like, this is
Yeah.
that's so good. That's so specific and like random and
And he completely breaks the rhyme and almost drops
Yeah,
out of the
right.
song.
Like, of course that fucking exists. You know, I don't even know if he's ever seen that before, but you could
it's just a safe
Right.
bet.
this.
There's certain things about that's one of the things about the internet is that there's just certain things that you know exist. Anyone who's ever had the experience of being about to Google a question and then being like, I know this is going to get suggested when I type in 3 words, and then it does. That's like a lower level version of the same thing.
I mean, there's a reason that like Rule 34 is like the most famous internet phenomenon ever.
What is that?
If something exists, there is porn for it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
go on. Fat butt.
and I'm glad that that's like there was that song "The Internet Is for Porn" or it was a meme or something. I'm glad that's not what this song turned out to be. I'm glad that this song had something more to say.
It was a perfect,
Yeah.
perfect mix.
And how he sometimes cuts himself off, like he starts a thought and then changes to something else, also captures that level of just like, you
Yeah,
got a bunch of tabs open. You're not going to,
yeah, he really captures like the frenetic energy of just being online.
Right, your
Yep.
brain is just like, I want something, I don't know what, and I'm ready for the internet to suggest things to me.
Yes. Such a feeling.
Yeah,
I've had that feeling a lot during the pandemic. Second half of the pandemic, I really started to feel myself like getting addicted to certain platforms and like would try to take a break and stuff. Facebook, I had to get rid of it on my phone, and that basically did the trick. But the problem is, you always sort of substitute it with something else, you know?
I've been addicted to YouTube Shorts lately, and I can feel my attention span like contracting, and I
Wow.
hate watching them. I would, I don't know if there's a dislike button, but I would press it, but I don't because then they'll stop showing them to me. It's I don't know. He really captures like the Stockholm syndrome of like terminal onlineness.
Stockholm syndrome of terminal
Mm.
onlineness. It's true. I also like Bezos too, mainly.
That song's just annoying me because I fucking hate Jeff Bezos.
I know, but it's just like, just like that, like obviously mocking, like orgasmic sound. You're just like, it's just kind of like, is this what you want, Jeff Bezos? Is this the validation you need?
I loved that too. That was I've been meaning to. I've actually been had that in the back of my head as something that I like wanted to specifically point out is just the feeling. That song basically just like gives you the feeling of like just like the inverse of the feeling that you have when you hear about Jeff Bezos of just like what the fuck like of just like yep, good job, you really did it. Like the fact that there's like three lines in that song, especially Bezos too. I don't think that he has any verses. Like it's just him vamping on the chorus, and I'm just like, yeah, yes, you did it. And then Jeffrey Bezos went into space.
Well,
So
yeah, I have to say it again. It's crazy what divorce will do to a guy.
the guy, the head guy, he's the head guy right now.
Yeah, man.
Are you guys
Are
seeing
you
what
seeing what
my?
I'm seeing?
Yeah, I was gonna say, look at that.
It's very inside.
Wow, yeah. That's what it reminds me of. Yeah, Zoom calls. Fitting that we're doing this conversation about Bo Burnham's inside on a Zoom call, am I right? Oh, or am I right?
Well, since we still have you, do you have any other songs you want to talk about?
I want to talk about that funny feeling.
I want to talk about that funny feeling too. That's the Nyarlathotep Hotep
Cool.
thing.
Go, Randy, go.
Okay, so I have a passage that I'm going to read here from H.P. Lovecraft's
Did
short
you just
story.
call him? Oh, sorry. You just said it's from H.P. Lovecraft's short story.
Yeah,
I just had a
Nyarlathotep Hotep.
flashback to being in church and being like, I'm
Did
gonna.
they read Lovecraft in church? That's
Yeah, our church is
badass.
cool, Randy. No.
Okay, so that funny feeling is exactly the song that makes me want to talk about this. I do not recall distinctly when it began, but it was months ago. The general tension was horrible. To a season of political and social upheaval was added a strange and brooding apprehension of hideous physical danger. A danger widespread and all-embracing, such a danger as may be imagined only in the most terrible phantasms of the night. I recall that the people went about with pale and worried faces, and whispered warnings and prophecies which no one dared consciously repeat or acknowledge to himself that he had heard. A sense of monstrous guilt was upon the land, and out of the abysses between the stars swept chill currents that made men shiver in dark and lonely places. There was a demoniac alteration in the sequence of the seasons. The autumn heat lingered fearsomely, and everyone felt that the world, and perhaps the universe, had passed from the control of known gods or forces to that of gods or forces which were unknown.
Ooh.
Yeah. Um, it, it also ties a little bit into All Eyes on Me with the oceans rising, all that. But in the lyrics of
Yeah.
that funny feeling, he mentions unapparent summer air in early fall, things like that. Um,
Comprehension of the ending of it all.
yeah. So I have this like little pet theory that I'm working on. I wanted to try and get an episode together about it sometime. Um, but there's a reason that he made a set of a campfire for that song, right? You know,
Mm.
there's a reason that it's a folk song. There's a reason that it has the fire crackling because I think it's meant to reach into that part of you that like kind of primal. Stupid people say like the reptile brain and stuff, and I'll be one of those people. I'll be I'll be that guy today.
Stupid guy number
Yeah,
one. Go.
Actually, it's reaching into my fish brain.
fish are the reptiles of the sea.
I think that
Too woke for
the
you.
turtles are the reptiles of the sea.
Yeah, but turtles can be on land.
I'm just saying.
Fuck you, Lydia. Turtles can
Dude,
be
showing up
on.
to my podcast, showing me up.
This reminds me of when I was a child and I was watching that episode of Full House where Uncle Jesse got a turtle, and it was really probably a tortoise anyway. But he just kept going, I love that amphibian. And I was just the whole time like, wait, turtles are reptiles, not amphibians. What the fuck? Is this supposed to be? Because I thought the episode was supposed to make Uncle Jesse look kind of cooler, but it made him look kind of stupid. And I didn't know if it was like the writers or Uncle Jesse that was like
In the
in the
wrong.
wrong. Yeah.
Morally
I
wrong.
hope you guys use
To
this
spread that
bit in the
lie.
podcast, if anything.
Oh,
I
don't worry. We can't afford to cut the good
no, I
jokes,
think
Lydia.
all the problematic stuff happened in the last one, so we don't have to cut much from this one.
Wonderful.
So
Anyhow, yeah, you were saying the campfire.
yeah, well,
Primal
yeah,
part of us?
I think
Primordial.
I'm just saying that I don't think it's a coincidence that this song and that visual go together. And I don't know if like Bo Burnham and I have the same feeling about a campfire, that it reaches back into, something that David Lynch would call like the deepest well springs of our being. But I think it does have that like kind of like, nobody can argue with Bob Dylan, right? Even if you want to, because I don't know, there's just something about a folk song, there's something about a campfire. I just think it's like a perfect synthesis of medium, message, and setting.
Well, a campfire is what kind of we come from in terms of like where we make music, but it's also what's going to be left if the shit in that song happens. If the new gods really do take over, I mean, that's where we're going to be singing. It's around the campfire. I think I thought that's what you were going to say, in fact. I hadn't thought of it until you started talking.
Well, okay, so goddamn, I hate to keep quoting a racist guy, but in the Call of Cthulhu, he talks about like after the apocalypse, we're gonna figure out all new ways to like scream and revel and enjoy ourselves. And I don't know, there is that feeling, what can you say? What can you say? We were overdue. It'll be over soon. And he's scatting on top of that.
Yeah, I want to say, so I was going to say like the beginning where he starts out with like, oh, I'm not very good at singing or playing guitar.
Well, that's
That,
classic guitar at a
don't-
campfire.
right, exactly. Classic guitar at a campfire, but also like don't expect too much. And then he comes out with this like very profound like song. Yeah, perfect message. And then at the end, right, it just switches to like that like uplifting campfire song like, what do you say? We were overdue. Oh well, all the things I said, yeah, they suck, but
Well, I think it's the purest like feeling of melancholy that he gets you to the entire time. That combination of like oh well plus like you said uplifting music, because to me the overall feeling is not uplifting but sad, but like it's sad because of how uplifting the music sounds, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think somewhere between this song and All Eyes on Me, I think the thesis for this special is going to be found. I don't know. Just for me, I think this was the real highlight.
yeah, it's a perfect capture too of like the spectacle. If we're going with that theory that this is actually about the society of the spectacle, where like he's like when he says female Colonel Sanders easy answers, I'm just like, oh my goodness. That and the brand awareness
Mm.
thing, I'm just like the fact that there's a where people are like, oh yeah, this capitalist company, this company that has a monopoly on this product cares about this social issue. That makes me feel good as a consumer. That's all I need.
Well, how about he doesn't even really address it in the song, but how about the irony of Pepsi halftime show, right? Pepsi did that ad with Kendall
Oh
Jenner.
yeah.
Pepsi did the ad with Kendall Jenner, um, where they like basically just did a parody of a Black Lives Matter protest and like police brutality exhibition. And of course, the NFL is the governing body that like decided we we're gonna like put a stop to Colin Kaepernick, right? And he doesn't even address it, but it's there, it's palpable. Go ahead.
While we're on the subject, by the way, boycott Frito Lay, which is owned by PepsiCo. So boycott PepsiCo if you want to support Frito Lay workers who are striking right now.
Always boycott PepsiCo. Or is it Coke?
Also, always
Yeah,
boycott
PepsiCo,
them, but
Frito Lay.
specifically right now, more so even than boycott, right? Just like maybe share an article or some shit. Do what little thing you
Right,
can,
because they
because
also own Dasani.
they own Cavita, which is the
It's
worst
like
kombucha
too,
company.
where it's like people are like boycott Amazon. Do you know how many companies Jeff Bezos owns? He owns IMDb. He owns like Zappos. Like the it's just a meaningless saying. It's like, oh, boycott Amazon. Oh, haha, you're like better if you do this thing, if you avoid buying this product. You don't you see? Like, yeah, you should try not to buy that product, but like you can't escape how many things are bad. You can't be perfect. You can't judge other people for doing things that are kind of shitty because there's shitty things that you're doing that you don't even know about and you can't know about because all of it's shitty. It's all shitty. That's the point. Like you can't escape it. You rely so heavily on it that you can't do anything about it.
No, you have to become like an Anprim.
Yeah, and fuck
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I mean, it's not the worst thing.
yeah. I'm not gonna become an Amprim before I have no choice. You know what I mean?
There are easier ways to realize your dream than building a compost toilet, to be honest.
On the other hand, maybe we should become Amprims before we have no choice.
I mean, it's so crazy to me that like Pepsi is like an MLM of like, but what they sell is just being problematic all the time, and the entry level is quicksand. It like Frito Lay is it's bad enough, right? I have like all kinds of Frito Lay products in my house. I bet Dasani is like,
Me too. Sure.
I mean, I have like an almost finished bag of Cheetos that I'm like, I don't feel good about eating this. Or I go to Chick-fil-A, like how much of what I give to Chick-fil-A is going to like what is it called? Conversion therapy?
But the
Mm,
thing is about
yeah.
companies, I was talking about Chick-fil-A and Hobby Lobby today, and there is something about those
Oh
companies.
yeah, what did Hobby Lobby do?
Oh,
Same
same shit.
shit. But also like they deny health. They don't deny contraception to their employees, and I think they've lobbied to the Hobby Lobby has like
The Hobby Lobbyists.
I think put money into to like keeping that out of healthcare in this in certain states.
It gets to a point where I'm like, okay, Chick-fil-A, like we already know capitalism is bad. We can assume that the politics of your company are bad. It's going to be bad. We know. But to
There's no such thing as like a feminist company or like
right,
an
exactly.
ally.
The female Colonel Sanders thing is so ironic and it's funny. Like to all just to be openly fucking homophobic is so fucking bold. Like fuck that. Like
But it's good chicken.
why?
And where else are you gonna get waffle fries?
I mean, I feel mixed feelings because I'm like, on the one hand, if you go anywhere else, you're just ignoring the fact that the owner of their company is probably homophobic. Um, but the fact that it's
If not the owner, then the majority of the
yeah, the
board, you
fact
know.
that it's out there, it's like, come on. The bar is so low, like please at least let us ignore this fact. But it's almost a statement, the fact that it's out there. It's a statement to how little anyone really cares because we just know that like it doesn't even matter because all of them suck.
It's almost impossible to like actualize caring, though.
On the level of branding, it's impossible, I think, truly.
Just if you live in a food desert, which most people do, I bet.
Yeah,
Like, what are you gonna do? How do you get away from Dasani if you don't have potable water that comes out of your faucet? I have to buy bottled water.
right, absolutely.
Even even when I was paying $800 a month in rent, I had to buy bottled water because I couldn't drink what came out of the faucet.
The fact that buying has been that it's that we can even think the thought that like buying something is akin to caring really does a disservice to the idea of caring, to be a little bit
No,
extreme.
it's
And
rude.
of course I get wrapped up in this ideology of the default consumer ideology too, like in small ways it
But the
happens to
way
all
that
of
you're
us, but
made to
like
feel bad about
that's
it
not
is not
care.
like, oh, you should feel bad about this because you don't really have a choice. The way that you're made to feel bad about it is like, oh, the Coca-Cola thing where, the company, the plant in India was poisoning the groundwater and poisoning people who lived near the factory. And or like with boycott Nike, Nike, exploits its workers and that's why you should feel bad about it. But for some
Or Coca-Cola again, like hiring mercenaries to kill union leaders.
Or fucking Chiquita.
right, it's just pointing a finger at one company being like this is bad. You should feel bad because they're openly doing this thing that's so bad or they were exposed. But for some reason it's okay for you to buy this other similar thing. And instead of being like, I feel bad because I have very little choice as a consumer, and the whole idea of caring about what you are buying is a class issue. In, Instead, it's like you're supposed to feel bad no matter what because the people who are actually feeling the up close like effects of this product and this company are live in the global south and are being poisoned or exploited. And but it's like no,
How do you boycott palm oil?
yeah, it's like the consumer responsibility is a myth. There's a reality where you can acknowledge what you're buying and why it's bad, but don't be naive. All of it's bad.
It's funny how like certain staples, like certain essential goods, become like trendy, like Evian or something, or um, Fiji water. I remember from elementary school that like everybody like wanted Fiji water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy how like essential things become commodified in that way, become trends. Um, when like the fact that like they're even importing. I mean, I'm sure they're not actually importing water from Fiji, maybe, but how does somebody avoid like that level of exploitation?
They are literally importing water from Fiji, which makes it all the more shocking.
Is that okay? Yeah, but it's like next door too at the fucking Tug Hill, right? Don't isn't there like maybe I'm crazy for some reason I feel like Tug Hill has water like a water like distribution thing.
There's a reservoir, but I don't know if it's being a private company owns the reservoir. I'll
I
tell
don't
you
know.
that.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Maybe I'm confusing Poland Spring for Tug Hill or something. But
Yeah, but that's a real
yeah.
one. That's in Massachusetts, I
Bye
think,
guys.
or
All
Maine.
right.
Maine.
Bye, Lydia.
Bye,
Thanks
Lydia.
for having
Everybody say goodbye to Lydia.